A routine every homeowner should do yearly is check their pressure relief valve on the hot water tank. And believe it or not, if your pressure relief valve goes bad, it can actually be deadly. And if you want to check out an interesting video, see the Mythbusters video on hot water tank explosions. So we're going to go through the steps on how to first check a pressure relief valve and then also how to replace one. So I'm going to remove the discharge tube, and your tube should extend down to the floor about 6 inches from the floor. And in case the temperature is too high or the pressure gets too high, if you didn't have a discharge tube, this could blow out and scald somebody. So it's important that we put a tube on this. And I spoke to the manufacturer, and we're just going to drain about a cup or two of water. And I'm just going to lift up the lever. I'm not going to put it all the way open, and I'm not going to snap back the lever. I talked to the manufacturer, and they said that you need to be delicate with opening and closing this. So I'm just going to open it up, and we're going to drain a couple cups of water. And then I'm just going to release the lever, and it should not leak. If it's leaking, that means you need to replace the relief valve immediately. And you can see here there's just a little bit of water from it sitting around the lip here, but it's not leaking. And the other thing is, if we open this and no water came out, you need to change the relief valve immediately. So now we'll go through the steps, and all we're going to need is a pipe wrench or a large adjustable pliers to remove this. So the first step is we want to shut off the main water going to the tank. And this is going to be the cold coming into the hot water tank. And then second, we're going to turn off the gas control if it's gas. And if you have an electric hot water tank, you'll turn off the breaker to it. The next step is, if you had a valve on the top of the tank, you're going to drain 1 or 2 gallons of water from the tank before we change the valve. If you have a side mount like this, you're going to need to remove about 5 gallons. So depending on your tank, you're going to have some type of valve on the bottom, and ours comes straight out. So I'm just going to connect a hose to it, and then I'm going to drain about 5 gallons of water from the tank. So when you're changing your relief valve, make sure you look at the label, and it's going to tell you the pressure and the temperature settings, and you want to replace it with one that's exactly the same for your tank. And in this case, it's set to 150 pounds of pressure and 210 degrees Fahrenheit. So if the pressure builds or if the temperature gets too high, it's going to relieve that pressure. So we're just going to grab a pipe wrench or a large adjustable pliers, and once you've drained the water, in this case on the side mount about 5 gallons, we're just going to turn it counterclockwise to remove the old valve. And you can hear I opened up a sink, a wash tub over here, to allow some pressure to be relieved off the hot water side. And you can hear it draining a little bit. Alright, so we'll just let a little bit more water drain before I remove this. So there's the old one. You can see the minerals and deposits that build up on it, and that's why it's important to keep checking this once a year to make sure that it's not obscured by minerals and it allows the valve to work properly. So I'm going to take the new valve, and I'm just going to use some Teflon tape. And when you put on Teflon tape, you want to wrap it clockwise as you're looking at the thread, and that way when you turn it on clockwise, it's not going to pull off. So we're going to take the new valve, and we're going to turn it clockwise, and then we're going to finish tightening it with a pipe wrench, and we're going to snug it down, and I want this pointing straight down. And then I'm not going to put my tube on yet. We're going to test it once we fill it. So now we're going to turn the water back on to the hot water tank. And then we're also going to, once it fills, then I'll turn back on the gas, or if you have an electric tank, turn the breaker back on. So I left the valve on the wash tub, and once it started pushing water out of the hot side, I knew that the tank was filled. So now the valve's on, the tank's full, and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to test the new valve just by lifting the lever slightly, and we're going to drain out a cup or two of water and release it. And there's no leaks, so now we have a new pressure and temperature relief valve on. I'm going to put the tube back onto it, and again, you want your tube about 6 inches off the floor. You never want to have this without a tube, because if this ever did open on its own, you could scald somebody. So those are the steps, very easy to do, and this is something you should check once a year to make sure the valve is in good shape, and then once every 5 years you should actually replace the valve, and that's going to keep your family safe.